I wish to extend very warm welcome to all of you and thank you for your valuable time for this ceremony. I'm especially thankful to His Excellency Ambassador Sadiq for accepting our invitation to be the keynote speaker. The fact is that Ambassador Sadiq is in a uniquely ideal position to speak today. He has been Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan. He has been our top diplomat in Washington, D.C. And after that, he was the pioneering secretary of the National Security Committee, which is equivalent to National Security Council of the United States, Britain, etc., and currently Pakistan's special representative for Afghanistan. I had the good fortune of interacting with him in all these 4 positions. Being thoroughly familiar with the Afghanistan scene, he is ideally suited to relate to and comment on the book and the projects it describes. I'm grateful to my friend Shahid Khan, through whom I came to know about the book, Breaking Ground. I first read its summary developed by my colleague, Samna Costa, and then read the entire book. It is such an inspiring book, which primarily is an account of the amazing work Heidi, her team, and organization has done in 3 continents, Europe, Africa, and Asia. I find her mission and story of converting the minefields into productive farms and turning farmers into entrepreneurs, selling their produce beyond the borders of their countries, absolutely fascinating. The story is so relevant to my country, Pakistan, that I plan to seek Heidi's agreement to translate the book into Urdu and publish it here in Pakistan for its greater outreach. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may not be familiar with my organization, PILDAT, let me quickly mention that PILDAT is an independent think tank established in 2001 with its focus on peace, democracy, parliamentary development, parliamentary performance, political parties development, elections, and working for improving the quality of governance. We have over 1,500 publications to our credit. Let me close my welcome remarks with the hope that Heidi, Gary, Shahid, and Roots of Peace will consider pioneering similar initiative of sowing peace in Pakistani fields as well. PILDAT will consider it a privilege to partner with any such initiative. I thank you all very much once again and wish to commend my incredible colleagues who worked hard in making this event possible. I thank Asya Riaz, our joint director, who is sitting monitoring this event in a time zone where the current time is at around 3 in the morning. I also thank Amna, Fahim, Asad, Habib, Mamoon, Dilbar Abbas, and all others who contributed to this event. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to invite my new friend, Ms. Cheryl Jennings, a thorough media professional and 9 times Emmy Award winner, to please take charge of this ceremony. Ms. Cheryl Jennings. Over to you, Cheryl.
Mr. Mehboob, thank you very much for your wonderful remarks, and it is totally an honor and a privilege to be with all of you today. And you've seen how the level of our guest is superb, and we are very, very fortunate to have everyone here with us today. Now, you're going to be hearing from Ambassador Sadiq in just a few moments. You're going to hear from all of our other speakers in just a moment. And of course, you're going to hear from the Honorary Consul General of Pakistan in just a little while. Now, the reason I am here as your moderator is because I have followed the work of Roots of Peace for 17 years. I went to Afghanistan when I was a news anchor for ABC 7 TV in San Francisco in 2005, and then again in 2015 to follow the work, document the work. So I have been documenting the work for television news for 17 years. So I have seen this grow from a small organization to a huge organization that is making farmers' lives so much better on those 3 continents you talked about, Mr. Mehboob. And you're going to hear about exactly how they did it through the stories of Heidi Kuhn and Gary Kuhn. I traveled with Roots of Peace to several war-torn countries to document that work, so I know that they are an organization that works with integrity, and that's really important in this day and age. Now, a little bit of business notes for everybody. We're going to be broadcasting to you, as you can tell, on StreamYard, which is sending out this program live to a number of social media sites throughout the world, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And once our speakers have finished their remarks, we're going to take questions for about 15 to 20 minutes. Those will be directed to the ambassador and to Heidi Kuhn. So please send your questions through one of the sites on which you're watching this program, and we will try to get that question in as soon as possible, and to the right speaker, of course. Now, we may not get to all the questions, but we can ask you to follow up by directing your questions to PILDAT and to Roots of Peace through their website, so that none of that gets lost. Very important that you take time to ask your questions, and we want to make sure they get answered. So this is an important note. Remember, we are not taking any political questions. We are only talking today about humanitarian concerns and possible solutions, always with a positive light. And so with that, let's begin our program. Our first speaker is Mr. Shahid Khan, who is the Honorary Consul General of Pakistan. He is also the Roots of Peace Senior Advisor, and he has been working diligently behind the scenes with Mr. Mehboob and his entire team to make sure this event is very special for you today. Mr. Khan is joining us from the United States on the East Coast, from the greater Boston area. And he has a long, successful history of working in international trade and development, and also in U.S. presidential elections. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorary Consul General of Pakistan, Mr. Shahid Khan.
Well, thank you very much, Cheryl, and hello, good morning, and salams from Boston. And a huge thanks to PILDAT and Bilal's team to organize this book launch event. This is just incredible work. We have been working on this for the last few weeks. This is, ladies and gentlemen, again, my name is Shahid Khan. I am a resident of Boston and also served as an honorary consul general of Pakistan. It is an honor for me to be part of this event where most of them are my old friends, and we have worked together in the past. Heidi is one of my best friends now, and so is Gary. I was introduced to Heidi by another mutual friend of ours. His name is Larry Sampler. He was director of Afghanistan and Pakistan and managing a $2 billion budget from USAID. So he introduced us, and then my wife visited Heidi in California, and she was so inspired and so motivated to meet with her and her work, which she has been doing in Afghanistan, which my wife thought has to be replicated in Pakistan as well. So I reached out to Heidi, and fast forward in 2017, we requested her to come to Pakistan. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan at that time, he extended the invitation to Heidi and Gary both, and they were brave enough, in thinking of the negative press about Pakistan and the security issues and all that negative stuff which was going on in the Western media. They landed in Islamabad. And this was such a pleasure to have them there. And directly from the airport, we went to Taxila. So we visited the museum. We went to the most ancient university in the Taxila area. And Heidi and Gary and our family, we actually visited a few weddings. We met with most important people in Pakistan, like the Minister of Communication, Minister of Environmental Control, met with the four-star general who was Chairman Joint Chiefs of Committee, and many, many others. So Heidi and Gary and we traveled from Islamabad to Lahore. We visited slums in Lahore. I just want to tell you one thing, my observation about Heidi and Gary. Heidi is the most genuine article I have ever met. She is very passionate about her work. She is a mother. She brings all her abilities to work for the poor people of Afghanistan, and especially demining the landmines. She has worked in many countries, inspired by Lady Diana, and she started her work just 3 days after her death, and she got first donation from the daughter of Walt Disney. So the impact of her work, you can see. I mean, read her book. You can see the. I have some data here. The average earning of an Afghan farmer was $800 a year, growing poppy seed and other type of crops. $812 a year, and now has gone up to $5,000 a year. So you can imagine the high value crops they are facilitating to grow, selling it in the international market. The visit of Kuhn's were covered by Dunia Television, and was in Islamabad and in Lahore. So I will request Cheryl to show some of the clips of that videos or the broadcasts which are done on the Dunia TV.
For a different perspective, one has to take a different route. And this precisely is the case with Pakistan. Despite all the negative press country gets in the West, Pakistan still is a vibrant and vivid place to be. Full of scenic landscape and amazing people. Pakistan is just like any other beautiful country in the world. All one has to do is to explore Pakistan with a different mindset by choosing the route to peace. It takes two to make a difference. So Gary Khan and Heidi Khan decided to visit Pakistan together. They were greeted by the most exciting, hospitable and open-hearted people wherever they went. A walk through the narrow alleys of old Lahore, called the Walled City, transformed into a journey into a heart of joy. With its enigmatic sounds and enchanting sights, the old Lahore is truly South Asia's city of love. Lahorites live up to their reputation of the heartiest folks whose love for food, fun and frolic make them the liveliest and loveliest people on the planet. From Lahore, their next destination was Islamabad. Officious and bureaucratic, the capital has the air of indifference that permeates through all the capital cities around the world. However, what makes Islamabad different is its idyllic location. Nestled in the lap of lush green Margla Hills, the foothill of great Himalayas, the serene settings and the splendid views of the city compensate for the slight distress created by the culture of power and politics. The drive from the plush Serena Hotel turned out to be a pleasant surprise. In a sharp contrast to the streets of old Lahore, the spacious and smooth roads of Islamabad, lined by green belts, cast a smoothing effect on the mind of a visitor. Traveling quite fast on the well-planned, signal-free corridors through small patches of slack traffic, Mr. and Mrs. Khan reached Federal Met Office in no time. The visit to this establishment and the interaction with some of the finest professions helped clear some misconceptions regarding inefficiency of the bureaucracy in the third world. By engaging in enlightening discussions with the Met Office team and touring the facility, Mr. and Mrs. Khan were convinced that it was functioning at par with the international standards. Next in line was a visit to the Information Ministry. Located on the 5th floor of the graceful Pakistan television building, the Information Ministry office came alive with the warmth with which Miss Mariam Aurangzeb, the Minister for Information, greeted her two guests. Modest in appearance but rich in substance, the minister walked the visiting couple through the roles and responsibilities of her office. To the couple's delight, Miss Aurangzeb came across as someone who is passionate about her challenging job of presenting a soft image of Pakistan in adverse external conditions. The highlight of their visit was the time they spent in the company of a living legend, Mehboob, a self-made, down-to-earth man who now owns the largest educational and media networks in Pakistan. Mehboob's life is an illustration of Pakistan being a land of opportunities for those who have some passion, vision, and drive to succeed. To his guest, Mehboob appeared to be a man generous in his hospitality, open in exchanging ideas, with a vision to build a more enlightened and moderate Pakistan. Mr. and Mrs. Khan challenged some perceptions created in the West regarding Pakistan. They showed great faith in Pakistan and its people by visiting this country.
My goodness. Thank you so much, Consul General Khan, for your warm words about Roots of Peace. They are the real deal, Heidi and Gary Kuhn. Absolutely. Also, thank you to Dunya TV for that impressive story. What coverage. That is fantastic. Our keynote speaker is coming up next, His Excellency, Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq. He is serving as Pakistan's Special Representative for Afghanistan. And you heard Mr. Mehboob talk about some of his credentials. I just want to add a few more. He was appointed to the post just a couple of months ago in June by the government of Pakistan. And he is a highly respected and extremely skilled diplomat who developed enduring relationships during his time as Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan from 2008 to 2014. And he served in key capitals around the world, including Brussels and Washington and Beijing. He is known for facilitating and organizing Pakistanis living overseas to play a more active role in their adopted countries. It is a tremendous honor to have you join us today, Mr. Ambassador. I can't even imagine how busy you are considering the times that they are these days. So thank you, sir, for being here with us.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Good morning and assalamu alaikum to friends close to the region. It's such a great honor. I have a number of friends among the panel here, and new friends, of course, also here. I sort of think that the timing of this launch, and of course it happened by chance, is very interesting because in less than 36 hours, we are hoping that the intra-Afghan negotiations would start in Doha. And I'm kind of, my suitcase is already packed to leave for Doha, hopefully. And, this was very painstaking effort and, the long time spent on creating something like intra-Afghan negotiations. We are just at a juncture where hopefully we will see results and we will see the march of Afghan people towards peace and towards prosperity. The inaugural session, as sort of I think everybody is aware now, the inaugural session will be day after tomorrow, Saturday early morning, and we are hoping that this inaugural session of the intra-Afghan negotiation will be able to decide an agenda for the talks in the short term and middle term, medium term, and will also agree on a timetable for further negotiations. The sort of, people, in Afghanistan, a number of people have worked peace and for prosperity over a period of time. But the contribution of Heidi Cohen, Gary Cohen, and their family is remarkable. They have done a lot of things in Afghanistan. They have done things with a lot of commitment. They have taken personal risk to do that, and their significant contribution in demining is particularly something which will be written with golden words in history of Afghanistan. I have personally seen the improvement which their efforts brought to the farmer community of Afghanistan, and the way that helped in increase of exports of Afghanistan in the region and beyond the region. I think, the period when Heidi was busy in Afghanistan and still busy in Afghanistan in a way, the farmers have increased their incomes several times, and exports have increased by at least 300%. The agricultural exports of Afghanistan have increased by 300%, and it's not a small achievement. It's really a very big, very important achievement. And for a country like Afghanistan, where the only job creating opportunity comes from agriculture at this moment, because all other venues have a lot of potential, yes, but that potential will take time to materialize. Agriculture is one such field where the results are quick, where the employment is very the employment created is at large scale, and the prosperity which the agriculture brings is faster than any other field. Closer to Afghanistan, just on the border, we have our former tribal areas, which are now part of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The situation in certain ways, especially as far as the development is concerned, and the struggle against terrorism is concerned, these areas share some history with Afghanistan and some situation. You see that the sort of economic destruction there and the destruction of agriculture in that area, particularly because of mining, is also there. And we are hoping that what Heidi did in Afghanistan, one day there will be an opportunity, and one day not too far away, one day there will be an opportunity that similar initiatives will be possible in FATA also, and erstwhile FATA also. And looking forward to a day when such projects could happen on this side of the Afghan border. When we are talking about FATA and we are talking about Afghanistan and we are talking about projects in agriculture, probably it's also the time to think about joint projects in which Afghanistan and Pakistan both could participate. Farmers from Afghanistan and Pakistan both could participate. We have about 3 million Afghan refugees staying here in Pakistan. An initiative like this will also provide employment to them. For example, if just across the border or on both sides of the border, we have agricultural projects, we have border markets selling agricultural produce to each other, it will create a lot of employment for the population on both sides of the border and for the refugee population. It will also become a pull factor, which will pull refugees back to their home with honor and with a job there, with some income there also. So, we look forward to a day, when Heidi will be able to expand her mission in the region, and Pakistan will also be included in that mission. An entity like Roots of Peace should not limit itself. I think the wider region should actually benefit from it, and we will welcome it. The book is inspiring. The book is very inspiring. It's a captivating read. And it actually gives you insight into the struggle which Heidi and her family had committed to for over a period of time, over the years. And we hope that her success in her future endeavors also, and also I think that first of all, I'm grateful that you invited me to launch this book, and also I'm invited to PILDAT. I'm also thankful to PILDAT for arranging this session and coordinating the whole thing. I think that PILDAT could be a very sort of apt, very good partner for Roots of Peace in Pakistan, and I think together, because they have an experience. They have an experience with Pakistani politics and Pakistani parliament, and also, the PILDAT have played a great role in training the politicians and parliamentarians and dealing with people who matter. I think that PILDAT could become a very good partner. Ahmed, Bilal, and his team could be a very good partner for Heidi and her organization. So with these words, I'm grateful, and I look forward to an interesting discussion after this. And I'm grateful to Heidi and Gary Cohen, Cheryl, Ahmed, Bilal, Shahid Khan, and all other friends on the panel. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much. We look forward to many, many positive developments. Right now, we are just about 3 minutes away from meeting Heidi Kuhn herself, the founder of Roots of Peace and the author of the book Breaking Ground. But first, I'd like to share a brief video with you that shows what inspired Ms. Kuhn to begin her long and risky journey 23 years ago to turn landmines into grapevines in war-torn countries. So please, let's take a look at that video right now.
20 years ago, in the last months of her life, my mother campaigned to draw attention to the horrific and indiscriminate impact of landmines.
Britain's Prince Harry is paying tribute to his late mother, Princess Diana, by urging people to rid the world of landmines by 2025. Prince Harry and his brother, William, were just young teens when their mother was tragically killed in a car accident in 1997. Prince Harry is now 32 and eager to carry on his mother's mission with the help of demining organizations, including the Halo Trust and MAG, the Mines Advisory Group.
My mother had been shocked and appalled by the impact that landmines were having on incredibly vulnerable people, and on children in particular. She didn't understand why more people were not willing to address the cause of so much suffering.
A mother of 4 young children in San Rafael was so profoundly moved by Diana's life that she was willing to address the suffering from landmines. Heidi Kuhn founded her charity, Roots of Peace, 20 years ago in San Rafael with her husband, Gary. Her dream, turn mines to vines, replacing landmines with grapevines or other food crops. They told me recently they were invited to Kensington Palace this year to hear the prince's call to action.
It was very emotional for him. You could really see that in his eyes and his demeanor, and it was very heartfelt.
Heidi and Gary were so inspired by Princess Diana, they traveled to the same landmine-filled province she walked in Angola. Their work with the Halo Trust saved people and animals. They applied lessons they learned through their Roots of Peace model in Afghanistan. First, remove the landmines, and then help the farmers improve their crop yields for food and for export. 14 years later, it's having a stunning effect on the economy's gross domestic product.
We've pushed up the GDP of the country. Our projects impact the GDP, 2 or 3%. At the farm level, it's, people changing their lives because now they have enough money for education and health. They don't need handouts.
Roots of Peace has worked in more than half a dozen countries removing landmines and restoring farmland. They are ready for Prince Harry's challenge in his mother's memory.
I think she'd be proud of her son and what he's doing, because this was one of her top causes.
We can take the words of her son and in the next 8 years follow up on that call to action and eradicate all landmines by 2025. Yeah. It would be a miracle.
Cheryl Jennings, ABC 7 News.
Move it out because a person could actually lift this out.
And now it is time to say hello to Heidi Kuhn. Heidi, you are a courageous and skillful and determined leader with Roots of Peace, but you're also a great storyteller. And I bet that you'd like to start with the trip that you and Gary took with Mr. Shahid Khan and his family. So let's go to Pakistan.
Well, Cheryl, thank you so much. I'm so humbled and honored, Your Excellency, esteemed panelists, for this opportunity to launch my book, Breaking Ground. You know, Cheryl, it was written from the heart of a mother, and I've had the honor of meeting very incredible people around the world, but some of my favorite people are on this panel, and that's Shahid Khan, his wife, Aoife, and their beautiful daughter, Sabrina. And on New Year's 2017, they invited me to begin the year and taking my footsteps to Pakistan. And just seeing these beautiful images just reminded me of 3.5 years ago and our vision for bridging borders for peace. You know, today, as His Excellency spoke, it could not be more important that we dig deeper for peace. And as our plane landed from the United States to Islamabad, a beautiful modern airport, and we were honored to be the guests of the Prime Minister, before even taking our luggage to the Serena Hotel, we drove directly to Taxila. And there I was able to see a city that was established 1,000 years ago BC. And it was an ancient trade route. And I think the Khan family wanted me to have that, to begin those footsteps with the understanding of multiple cultures and the respect for knowledge. And knowledge was sacred, as the oldest university was established in Taxila. And the footsteps of Alexander the Great, Buddhist teachers, and St. Thomas the Apostle walked this land throughout the centuries. And today, in 1980, it was established as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And from there, we drove with a beautiful delegation to the city of Islamabad, you know, a cosmopolitan urban city and the namesake of the City of Islam. And as the beautiful Dunya TV segment expressed, I was honored to meet some of the top ministers and generals of the country of Pakistan. And again, from my heart, was so touched by the kindness of the people of Pakistan. The general actually invited us the next evening to the wedding of his beloved daughter. So to see the joy in the hearts of just human beings, you know, COVID-19 has created a world where, you know, we are all shelter in place. And we can only imagine the empathy that it takes for people to not be able to walk out their doors due to landmines. And as we express this passion for Roots of Peace to the leaders of Islamabad, we then drove another 4 hours to Lahore. And the beautiful city of Lahore, you know, again, is another UNESCO heritage site. And we visited the Wazir Khan beautiful mosque. We prayed together. Again, just prayers to the same God. We're all daughters and sons of Abraham. As the foreword of the book is so eloquently written by Her Majesty Queen Noor. And, you know, perhaps the most beautiful part of that visit to the fort and the Shalimar Gardens was in the evening. And when the sun went down on January 6th, it was my birthday. And I couldn't imagine a better place to spend my birthday than Lahore. But in the evening, Shahid's daughter, Sabrina, had gathered hundreds of blankets, warm, fresh, brand new blankets, brought them from the United States to Lahore. And that evening, with bodyguards, we went to one of the poorest slums in Pakistan. And the stench walking from shanty to shanty, people just living on meager means and bringing these warm blankets to the elderly, to the children, in the midst of the cold of winter. The smiles of appreciation. Really, it was one of the best birthday parties of my life. And I'd like to say and segue here, you know, I celebrate my birthday. Why? Because I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 30 years old. And I think anyone who goes under the knife realizes that defining moment, dear God, grant me the gift of life, and I will do something special with it. Well, today, that has manifested. I've more than doubled my life. I'm 62. I always proudly say my age, but I am so grateful for the ability to take my footsteps forward for peace. I'd like to talk to you about the catalyst that I believe is cancer is a landmine. None of us ever know when we're going to step on it. And landmines are a cancer to the earth. And the solution is removal. This is an example of an anti-personnel mine. We live in a world today where there's an estimated 60 million landmines silently poised in 60 countries. And if you imagine the footsteps of a child with an anti-personnel landmine hidden in the ground, and children who cannot kick a soccer ball out of a field without losing a life or limb to a landmine. We work around the world, and this is a bouncing Betty. It's planted in over hundreds of thousands of unexploded bombs remain in Quang Tri province, the former DMZ where the Vietnam War raged. But this is a wicked UXO because when stepped upon, again, it takes only 8 pounds of pressure to detonate a landmine. And as a mother, I know that's the weight of a newborn child. But when a bouncing Betty explodes, it sends shrapnel in all directions, and not only would kill a person, but a small child. The children and the women are often the most victimized by landmines. So in September of 1997, 23 years ago this month, I set out on a quest to turn mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with bountiful vineyards and orchards worldwide. And as I continued our quest, with the support of many, our eyes were cast upon Afghanistan. And 19 years ago tomorrow is the anniversary of the tragic September 11th attacks on the United States soil. And the world became aware of Afghanistan at this time. Many of my friends still think it's Tora Bora and caves. Well, I'd like to express that it is not. It was once known as the Garden of Central Asia, and it's a country that's 80% dependent upon agriculture. And conversely, it is the most heavily mined country in the world. 60 million landmines in 60 countries, and the neighbor in Pakistan has the most landmines. Putting the children, fear in the farmer as they, literally plow their fields with the risk of losing a mine. So as Your Excellency, you on this Saturday, extend your wisdom, your knowledge coming out of retirement to take this important job of being the special representative from Pakistan to Afghanistan and taking the sincerity of this moment to dig deeper for peace. Because a landmine knows no politics. It knows no color. It knows the color of our hand, the faith in our hearts, or the politics in our mind. We must remove these seeds of hatred from soil and soul and have fertile ground across all borders to begin to plant the roots of peace. And that's not just my charity. It's a call to action for many, for the wonderful development companies that we've worked for, and to be able to say thank you on this eve of 9/11 to my country for investing over $100 million to Roots of Peace since we began our journey in 2003 with funding from, yes, Diane Disney Miller, the daughter of Walt Disney. She understood what a dream takes, and I will always remember the words she told me when she would volunteer very humbly in the basement of my home where I was headquartered for many years. She said, "Heidi, it took my dad 330 no's for him to finally convince the world that a little mouse named Mickey Mouse would change the world." You promised me that one day you will get out of your basement and be able to implement your dreams of creating a mine-free world, but most importantly, creating sustainable agricultural crops, transcending borders. Roots of Peace, with the funding from USAID and INL, we have planted over 5 million fruit trees in all 34 provinces and impacted over 1.1 million farmers and traders. And I hope that's just a beginning, because there's so much work that needs to be done. And if Afghanistan is to dig itself out of the rubble, it needs its cousin across the border to greet them, and to transcend those borders for peace. As CEO of Roots of Peace, I'm managing perhaps the most important harvest of my life. Not only are we faced with the challenges of terrorist attacks, but COVID-19. It knows no borders. The suffering and the lack of health care is unspeakable. but yet the courage of our farmers in harvesting these beautiful fresh fruits, these pomegranates from Kandahar, apples, apricots, almonds from Ghazni, Wardak, and Logar, and then preparing for the rolling harvest up north of Kabul in the Shamali plains, where the fresh, juicy nectar of grapes and raisins will be transported across borders and into areas that we're working very closely with. I'm very fortunate to have 250 Afghan staff, and it's all about trust. Many of them have worked for me for 15 years, and I've seen them grow from young men and teenagers to graduates of the London School of Economics. And I just think an important call to action, and I think in the spirit of partnership, when those important talks are taking place this Saturday, if we can keep these borders in Torkham and Spin Baldak open on a regular basis, then we can bring those cold storage, refrigerated, corrugated boxes of fresh fruit across the beautiful borders into the beautiful country of Pakistan and into the supermarkets of neighboring markets in the UAE and India. You know, again, transcending borders, we need to lift up the region with jobs for young people. And I'd like to conclude by an inspirational story. You know, peace is a family business. And not only my husband, but my dear 4 children have all walked a minefield with me. And my youngest daughter, my only daughter, Kylie Kühn, when she was 13, I took her to the minefields of Croatia. And there she was able to see that children who didn't grow up in a place called California didn't even have a pair of jeans. They couldn't chase a butterfly across a field without fear of losing a limb to a landmine. When she saw that, when she was 16 years old, she had the honor of meeting Cheryl Jennings. And I will never forget, as 3 women, we sat at a table outside of KGO, ABC 7 News, where Cheryl was, of course, the #1 news anchor in San Francisco for over 30 years. And as 3 women, we decided, what can we do to lift up and put the word ACE, I like to think, back into the word peace. Because when I was a student at Berkeley at UC Davis, peace was, you know, 2 fingers up, but nothing could be more important than digging down, eradicating the landmines, and creating those fertile grounds for peace. The root word of peace, you can see over my shoulder, let's see, go this way, ACE. And ACE, A for agriculture, C for commerce, E for education. Let's put the word ACE, ACE, back into the word peace and redefine it like never before. Kylie started a campaign raising pennies, American pennies, 1 penny at a time. Through the partnerships and her courageous outreach as a teenager, raised over 50 million American pennies to build schools for girls in Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, these schools still remain today in Mirbochakot and Bamsarai, which means rooftop of the world. So as I conclude my conversation, I always like to lead with a point of action. For once the peace talks are completed and the ink is dry on the peace treaties, we need to take peace action and put shovels into the hands of the farmers on both sides of the borders. And together we will reap a harvest of hope in 2020. And I would like to say, with a commitment of my dear friend Sabrina, whom I spoke with again this morning, and thanking her for that wonderful trip her father and mother took me on to Pakistan. But together as women, we will join hands once again. And in the former FATA region, we will commit to our hearts to raising the funds, calling upon the world to refurbish one school, and one school for girls, because it's important that boys and girls have a proper education and learn from one another how to create a more peaceful world. Let us use this moment of reflection and call upon the world peace through agriculture. Together with Pakistan, may we plant the roots of peace on earth. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Shahid. And thank you most of all, Bilal, and the wonderful friends and professionals at PILDAT. There are great opportunities in front of us. And the glass of water is still half full rather than half empty. Thank you, Cheryl, and back to you.
All right, Heidi. It is always so wonderful to hear your uplifting stories, your passion, and your call to action by everybody in this program today. So I want to talk about your husband, Gary Kuhn. It's been a partnership, as you always acknowledge, always a teamwork. These two have worked so hard for many, many years to improve the lives of thousands of farmers and families in war-torn countries. And of course, they have many important partners. They have to have that kind of help too, private donors and support from USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development. So it does take that kind of teamwork to make all of this happen. Now, the success of Roots of Peace in Afghanistan is acknowledged publicly by Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani, as well as Abdullah, the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation for the peace talks. I have a short clip that I'd like you to see to hear what they said about Roots of Peace.
I want to thank Roots of Peace for their initiatives, and I'd be very encouraging of scaling up the effort. Without the sons and daughters of farmers believing that they can be presidents, ministers, entrepreneurs, we will not have a prosperous country.
I cannot thank you enough, Heidi, for your work, your colleagues here in Afghanistan, and also your accomplishment and achievement in the region and beyond. Those efforts of yours are important during the war, during the peace negotiations, and especially in post-peace economic development. The impact of your programs, Roots of Peace in Afghanistan, is seen and felt by many people here, and appreciated, and we are grateful.
And joining us now to talk more about the business of peace is Gary Kuhn. He is the president of Roots of Peace, and he's traveled overseas to many of these countries where Roots of Peace has implemented programs. And Gary, your business model is built on science, trust, honesty, and good communication. So can you please tell us more about that?
Sure, Cheryl. Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I've traveled into Afghanistan over 50 times and been down to Pakistan a couple of times also, to Peshawar and the areas around KP. So it's wonderful to work in these areas. Heidi's book chronicles what we've done in Afghanistan, and it's really based on a push for peace. And in order to have peace and develop peace, you have to instill hope in the people. We work primarily with farmers. It's the largest group that we could impact directly, building hope primarily. And hope for them is hope that they could provide for their families. And this is done by increasing their income or developing new jobs. And over the last 17 years, we've focused heavily on upgrading farmers in Afghanistan to higher value crops, which create jobs, which increase their incomes. Their incomes jump 3 to 5 times from what they had. They go from poverty into doing very well. In the average farms that we work with, we're generating 2 to 3 jobs per farm. And so in areas where jobs are extremely scarce, we've been able to create jobs. And these areas are all over Afghanistan, but our most heavy emphasis has been in the south and the east. So going from Helmand through Zabul, Paktia, Host, all the way over to Jalalabad, Nuristan. And these are all the areas on the northern side of the border with Pakistan. With major investments from World Bank and USAID and State Department, INL, we've been able to push this program and expand it to literally millions of people. And it's had major impacts on the yields and the incomes of these farmers. It's helping the farmers, but then also helping them export all this additional crop. If you double and triple yields, you have to find new markets for all that excess crops. So everything, a lot of it's coming to Pakistan. Pakistan is the #1 market for Afghanistan. The region, South Asia, and also to the North Central Asia are the biggest markets for not only Afghanistan, but also Pakistan. So this success has been phenomenal. Over 17 years, there's been a market change, and this will continue to grow as more farmers learn how to do this process, more traders learn how to export to other new markets. And this model can be applied south of the border. The areas of the former FATA, pretty much the same climate as we're operating with on the northern side of the border. The farmers can adopt this, and they want to. We know there's demand there from these farmers because some of these farmers have actually come across the border and attended our trainings in Afghanistan and gone to our nurseries and bought the trees and gone back into Pakistan and planted new orchards there. So there's demand for doing the same thing. These farmers want to have hope for higher incomes. So it's a difficult area to operate in, but that's no reason not to do it. There needs to be a strong push in Pakistan, and Roots of Peace stands ready to help tell PILDAT or any other organization how we did it in Afghanistan so that they could carry on and do it as well there, or other organizations like Roots of Peace or Roots of Peace to help do that work. In order to have peace in Afghanistan, we have to have peace in both sides of the border. In the former Pashtunistan lands, we've got to make sure all those peoples have hope and have an opportunity for jobs and higher income. Neighbors can share success. I mean, this Afghanistan agricultural development is a success, and most of our staff were educated at University of Faisalabad Agricultural School, and so this success that they've had is owed in great part to Pakistan as well. But these neighbors can help each other, and it's time where the voices of agriculture, the voices of private sector should start getting involved in conversations and how the two countries interact. It's long been dominated by military and politicians, and they still have to be very involved because this is a tough area, but there is a place for discussions on commerce, discussions on agriculture between the two countries. How things would work, positive things in Afghanistan should be shared with the folks working in areas in the former FATA and the KP. This is a great opportunity to share both between the countries, both politically and also with the private sector. So you can read Heidi's book to see a little more on how we did it there, but also we welcome sharing our experiences, our successes with others if they want to pursue things like that as well. Back over to you, Cheryl.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. All right, we want to take some questions now from our audience. Our first question is directed to Ambassador Sadiq. I'm going to try to pronounce this word. Forgive me if I don't say it correctly. We hear that the government of Pakistan, the provincial government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, KP, and other state institutions like the Armed Forces of Pakistan are working hard and doing a wonderful job to reconstruct the destroyed facilities in the former FATA area during the war against terrorists. Many around the world may like to support this humanitarian work of reconstruction of facilities such as schools and playgrounds for youth. Is there or can there be a system in Pakistan to channelize such gestures of goodwill and facilitate the people who wish to join this noble endeavor? Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you. Excellent presentations. I already very inspired by Heidi's work and her remarks today. They are right up to the mark and amazing. Very good. Just I'll mention one thing. In every day now, roughly, it's the peak season for Afghanistan. Fresh fruit coming to Pakistan is the peak season, and about 300 trucks are crossing every day. Sometime even more than that every day to Pakistan, carrying fresh fruit, amazing fresh fruit. Some of it go beyond Pakistan. They go to Wagah border also, that is like you have seen. The fruit coming from Afghanistan, the quantity is increased because Pakistan is the largest market of Afghan fruit, particularly the fresh fruit, and we are facilitating that. Despite the COVID SOP environment, we try to open the borders for transport, for transportation of produce. The borders are fully open, and our Torkham border, which is the main crossing border, works 24 hours. We don't close it, and we have 5 border crossings open, and all 5 border crossings have trade going on both ways. Produce coming from Afghanistan and exports going from Pakistan to Afghanistan. So like these things, the Afghan contribution in the bilateral trade have increased because of what ID and her team did in Afghanistan over a period of time, over these years. And for Pakistan now, we think that the economic diplomacy is going to be the mainstay of our relationship with Afghanistan, and the economic, the economic cooperation, the commerce, bilateral trade. We think that agriculture is going to dominate it in the coming days. Agriculture is also very important. That it creates more jobs than any other sector in a country, particularly which was historically, an agricultural country, and it's coming back now. It's becoming, a very vibrant agriculture producer once again after 40 years, 4 decades of war and destruction and disruptions in the economic activity. So we are looking forward to it, and I like what AD said. It's this peace through agriculture. I think that this region in general, and Afghanistan in particular, peace will come there through agriculture. There is no doubt in this. Today, millions of Afghans are outside their country, in Pakistan, in Iran, in other countries. Almost all of them belong to families who are engaged in agriculture. So if there are agricultural opportunities in the field of agriculture in Afghanistan, these refugees will have a pull factor, and a lot of them will go back. And we hope that when peace is restored, and negotiations are starting now, in a day, we hope that with these negotiations, once these negotiations start, and once we move towards peace in Afghanistan, more opportunities in the field of agriculture will be created, and those opportunities will be a pull factor for Afghan refugees from around the world. The question about about FATA and a system where international partners and local partners from Pakistan also could work jointly with the government of Pakistan. That will be possible, I think. At this moment, it's a very initial phase. The regulation in FATA FCR is no longer there, and new laws are replacing the old structure, the old laws, and the old system. It will take time because FATA is comparatively less developed when you compare it to the rest of KP, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and rest of Pakistan. But people in FATA are very, their entrepreneurial skills are, I would say, that one of the best in Pakistan. Like Afghanistan, people are like, they are born traders. They know how to trade. They know how to work hard. They are very good workers. If you go to Middle Eastern markets and other places, you will see, the hardest working, the most difficult jobs are done by people who belong to these areas. And also in entrepreneurship, they have actually established their mark. It's not only in Peshawar, in cities like Islamabad and Rawalpindi and Lahore, and particularly in Karachi, you see the people from FATA engaged in economic activity, gainful economic activity, and actually making their mark in the fields in which they are worked. So we hope that in former FATA, erstwhile FATA, we will be able to work with international partners. Some international partners are already engaged there, and we hope that that canvas will be broadened, and we'll be able to bring in more people to FATA to work at the grassroots level, and also to help people living in FATA. Because with the terrorism and all the issues faced, the people in Fatah faced, the whole area faced, the economic opportunities had diminished. There were orchards in Fatah area, forest, a lot of forest and a lot of agriculture in Fatah area. That was destroyed. Now it's being re-established. Markets are being re-established. Orchards are coming back. Forest areas, more trees are being planted. And this billion, this now 10 billion tree tsunami, large number of trees are being planted there, which was actually, a source of livelihood for people also. So I think that Fatah will be open for business sooner than people think. Hopefully, we hope that peace in Afghanistan will actually bring stability on this side also in the border regions. And again, like I said in my remarks, we look forward to joint ventures, joint markets, border markets, common markets on both sides of the border, because the conditions of people living on both sides of Pakistan-Afghanistan border are roughly the same, not much difference. They are actually in most cases the same people. You have Memon tribe living on Pakistani side, half of the tribe lives on the other side. You have Achakzais living on Pakistani side, the same, their cousins, their brothers, are living on the other side or married, in the other side. We have people who are called Chashmahis, who live 6 months in Pakistan and then, go to Afghanistan and live 6 months there in the border area. It's a very small radius in which they move. This actually provides us a great opportunity in which we can think about, with the help of international partners also, we can think about developing border markets, joint economic activity, establishing joint industry, and we actually are thinking about starting a number of things. We are trying to keep the borders open. And the borders which are already open, especially like Chaman border is fully open now for pedestrian traffic. And every day, roughly 25,000 people cross that border. When this border was opened after this COVID-19 SOPs were relaxed, first day, 60,000 people crossed. In first 2 days, 100,000 people crossed that border. Very soon, Torkham will also be open. Torkham is open now partially, once a week. On Saturdays, it's open fully. And every Saturday, thousands of people crossing that border. So we are hoping, with keeping these borders open and keep politics away from the from bilateral trade and movement of people, it will help us in developing the bonds between the people on both sides of this line.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you. Our next question is to Heidi Kuhn. Heidi, the question is, I'd like to know, what would Heidi like to do in Pakistan? Her first initiative, what is your vision? What is your dream?
Well, it all starts with listening, doesn't it, to the needs of the Afghan people. So that's what I would like to do first, and build upon the success of what we've established, build the trust. And let me give you an example how we first started and established our first tree, our first orchard in Afghanistan. It was 2004. It was after Diane Disney Miller had provided the funding, which we implemented through the United Nations Mine Action Service. The fields were clear. And we went to the elders, the tribal elders, and said, may we have a plot of land and use it as a demonstration plot, how to lift those grapes that had not only been burned, but mined to destroy the hearts of the Afghan people during the harvest. And as we went to the elders, we introduced what here in California is a very popular way of growing grapes. And that's the grape trellis vines. Instead of growing the grapes on the mounds, as they had done following the war, they were harvesting at midday, dragging the fruit to market on burlap sacks and expecting a meager salary or meager income. And what Roots of Peace introduced, Gary brought over the trellis vines, and those, were the sticks, basically. Well, we brought wooden trellis posts up there and just told them, we'll be back in the spring, just trust us. And when we got back in the spring, they had cut down all of the wooden trellis posts. And we said, why did you do this? Why didn't you listen? This would have worked. And they looked at me very blankly and said, Mrs. Kuhn, it was the coldest winter on record. If we had not cut the wooden posts to keep our family warm or cook a warm meal, we wouldn't be alive. So Gary and I learned a very important lesson, and that's to listen to the local people. And since then, we introduced cement trellis vines, and those cement posts are now businesses owned by Afghans. And the cement trellis post is a legend in lifting the fresh grapes off the ground and doubling and tripling the income for poppies. But that's what high value crops is really our focus. And what I would love to do is take that simple concept with trust across the borders, listen, first of all, to the needs of the people in Pakistan, and work with them to establish those orchards. When we did start in 2004, people said, why are you planting trees? Are you from California? And we were like, no, you have to have patience. It takes patience to plant a tree, faith in the seed. You must water it. You must nurture those seeds. And it took 10 years for those trees to grow. Ultimately, as I mentioned, 5 million trees throughout the country. Today, those fruit trees are now bearing fruit, and they must be harvested in a proper way to go across borders and into new markets. That money comes back and benefits the local community. So that concept and basic principle of demine, replant, and rebuild, my vision would be to carry that very simple, replicable model onto the beautiful soils of Pakistan and create prosperous farmers, jobs for the young people, and business opportunities, business to business.
All right, Heidi, speaking of business and your vision, and with Gary having traveled back and forth, Gary, how would you envision this kind of partnership working with your success in Afghanistan that can be replicated?
Yeah, the work that we've done could be replicated by Roots Peace or others. And that the first thing to do would be to bring some of these farmers from the border regions and bring them across over to Gardez or to other provincial areas on the border so they could see what's going on. Farmers are very slow to change, and if they need to see things first. So just exchange, bring them across, see them, and then establish some pilots in the areas in Waziristan, and not just out in the French near Peshawar, but in the Fatah, former Fatah areas. And then that's the beginning, and then they see the new technologies, and to adopt any change for a farmer is risky, so that they want to be able to see it done in their areas. So there needs to be pilots set up, and the local agricultural ministry needs to be heavily involved in this, and setting kind of strategies on what are going to be the key crops. So there's work with the government, but the main thing it gets down to is on the ground, working with the farmers, showing them what's possible, building the hope that they can improve their lives.
All right, Gary, thank you. Our next question is for Ambassador Sadiq. Why did you leave your retirement after having such a fabulous career to come back into this business, the business of peace, Mr. Ambassador?
Very interesting. Actually, for the last few months, I've been kind of asked by the principals, to come back and sort of accept this position, left this position. I have worked in Afghanistan. I have good contacts with people in Afghanistan. I consider it my second home. Being a Pashtun, actually, I consider that Afghanistan is my home as much as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan is my home. So I thought, it's an obligation, it's a duty. I should do it. I should do it for my children. I should do it for the next generation, because whatever happens in Afghanistan is going to affect Pakistan, particularly the area from where I come. That is the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I think that it was it was sort of a duty I needed to do, and I accepted it. I hope I hope my contribution at this time, after my retirement, I hope it will bring something positive, not only to bilateral relations, but also to Afghanistan directly in terms of peace and prosperity.
All right, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. Our next question is to Mr. Mehboob. The ambassador is talking about partnerships and the importance of that as we go forward. What are your thoughts about leading the effort through PILDAT with Roots of Peace in partnership and with locating private donors for these projects?
Can you unmute me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Should I repeat the question? Mr. Mehboob? Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, please. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear it. Yeah.
Okay. This is the question for you. The ambassador was talking about the importance and the need for partnerships, multiple partnerships. So how about PILDAT leading the effort with Roots of Peace and locating partnerships and finding private donors for these projects?
Certainly, I think there is a lot of opportunity to do that. We need to explore that. It's not an area in which we have worked before. So we will need a lot of, I think, we need to do a lot of learning from partners like Roots of Peace. And
I think we have had a little bit of a breakup in the signal.
Yeah, I think we can actually.
All right, then our next question. Sorry, Mr. Mehboob, we're going to come back to you because your signal has been interrupted. So, Mr. Shahid Khan, this question is for you. You talked a little bit about why you're so impressed with Roots of Peace. What is it that makes you convinced that this organization is right for Pakistan?
Well, that's a good question. I have seen the commitment in Gary's and Heidi's eyes. I have seen what they have done. I have seen what can be replicated in a former FATA area. I understand the similarities. I understand the challenges those folks are facing in those areas, and the issue of the Taliban and the destruction of schools and destruction of crops and the destruction of livelihood of those folks. I can see the honesty, integrity, and the commitment, and they have proven that Roots of Peace has done that work. They can do it on ground in Pakistan, and they can do the similar work in Pakistan. So I'll be all out to support their mission in Pakistan, hopefully with the help of government in Pakistan.
This next question is for Heidi. Heidi, you are very gracious to announce reconstruction of a school in former FATA. You have worked in many countries. Do you have plans to work in Pakistan for a sustained period of time as opposed to one project?
Well, yes, I would be honored to work in Pakistan for a sustained period of time. I'm so proud to say it's been nearly 2 decades that I've had the privilege of working with the Afghan government. You can't go into a country without the invitation, of course, of the respective government. But it would be my greatest honor to work in Pakistan. And I think we all need to begin with a small plot. And I think to identify with the support of the Pakistan government, I would envision a partnership with PILDAT as a result of this beautiful conversation and turn ideas into reality. And it would be an agricultural Roots of Peace PILDAT plot of land in the former FATA region, and we would establish a school. So while the farmers were in the fields, their children were being educated and taken care of, and the children are learning the modern agricultural techniques. So there's dialogue across generations and the sharing of knowledge. Like Taxila was such an inspiration to me. I think that sharing of knowledge is important across all borders, and it would be my honor and privilege to establish a partnership beginning with PILDAT in this area and grow it out throughout as appropriate the country. And we will be there indefinitely as long as we're an invited guest. It would be my greatest honor.
All right, Heidi, thank you. Our next question is to the ambassador. Your government and you are playing a very important role in facilitating peace in Afghanistan. If these efforts bear fruit as they should, what is the vision of your government to shape the future of the region from a common person's point of view after the peace returns?
Cheryl, this region and particularly Afghanistan, is a very poor country. It's not poor because it is nationally poor. It's not poor because of that. It's poor because of the instability, the wars, the violence in last 40 years. And there are there are effects in Pakistan also. Some of these things happened in Pakistan also, in certain areas of Pakistan particularly. Once the peace returns, I think that the journey towards economic development actually, the region would enter actually into 21st century in true sense with the economic development. And economic development cannot happen unless there is peace. And when there is peace in Afghanistan, peace will not be limited to Afghanistan. It will be a peace for the entire region. Similarly, when there is economic development in Afghanistan, there will be economic development in the entire region. Afghanistan is on the crossroads. We are looking at connecting with Central Asia and beyond through Afghanistan. Similarly, Afghanistan is looking at connecting with the world through Pakistan. Already we have quite elaborate arrangement for Afghan transit trade. There are issues in that currently, especially after the COVID-19 SOPs. There are backlogs because for about 3 months everything was closed, and we are still trying to clear the backlogs. And we hope that in next 2 to 3 weeks the backlogs will be cleared. And the delays which are caused in the bilateral trade movement and the transit trade movement, those delays will be addressed. And once these are addressed, they will give actually provide very good markets, not only for the product from international market to Afghanistan and beyond, but also they will provide very good market to Afghan produce in Pakistan and beyond. So what will happen is the dividend of peace will be seen in terms of economic prosperity. The dividend of peace will be seen in terms of employment. And what Heidi did in Afghanistan at a fairly significant level actually will spread not only to entire Afghanistan and to all the all the farmers of Afghanistan and all the producers of Afghanistan, but to the region beyond also. So the vision is, peace is important for prosperity. Prosperity cannot come without peace. So they are interlinked. They are interlinked. So what I think is peace is integral. Peace is prosperity is integral to the peace. And working towards peace, working towards is equal to working towards prosperity and prosperity of generations, actually.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We are almost out of time. We have about 9 minutes left, but I would like to open this up to all of our speakers and ask each of you to give a brief final thought as we wrap this up. And Mr. Ambassador, I'd like to start with you for about a minute or so. Please.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm honored. I'm invited for this launch, and I'm inspired by the book. I'm inspired by the work which Heidi and Gary did, and their children also, from their commitment also. And I hope we'll have more people in our society and in international community who will follow in their footsteps and do similar work in different fields. We hope that FATA will be erstwhile FATA area will be cleared from landmines in next few months. We have a timetable for that. The clearance work had already started, but we are still facing situation in which children, women, men, they lose their limbs and they lose their lives because of these mines. We are trying to speed up the clearance of mine in FATA area, and we hope that The way Heidi worked in Afghanistan, we will have similar work done in Astral Fata area also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's see if our signal is reestablished with Mr. Mehboob. Are you there, sir? I'd like to hear your final thoughts briefly for about a minute, sir.
I think that's perhaps not the case. I think maybe we should just
We don't have him. Oh, right.
Yeah, we don't have him right
We
now.
don't have
But
him.
I think maybe we can start with
Mr. Khan. Go ahead, very briefly. You can unmute.
You're asking me, right?
Your final thoughts, sir, just for about a minute.
I am actually looking forward to promoting a more positive relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan moving forward, and most importantly, working with Heidi and Gary to make this possible. Of course, a lot of support is needed by Ambassador Sadiq and the government of Pakistan to become prosperous, and that should be our endeavor. So I will appreciate all of us working together and making this dream a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gary Kuhn, your final thoughts as we wrap up our show, about a minute or so.
So I'd just like to re-emphasize that it is wonderful to have cooperation with Pakistan and Afghanistan together. I mean, that the two countries can do so much more than they're doing now, commercially and politically, if the two work to support each other. And so I thank very much for the Ambassador Sadiq to attend the peace conferences coming up here, and I wish him all the best of luck on this adventure.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. All right, let's go to Heidi Kuhn. Your final thoughts.
That's my most sincere appreciation to Your Excellency. We are with you. We wish you all the luck in the talks on Saturday. And when I started Roots of Peace, I was a mother of 4. Now I'm a grandmother of 3. And as a grandmother, I take my footsteps on this earth so seriously and will commit to work with you beginning next week. Let's, when the ink is dried on the peace talks, let's show peace action. This is the harvest season. Nature will not wait for peace treaties to be signed. Let's show the world a harvest of hope in 2020.
Heidi, thank you so much. All right, we do have our signal now with Mr. Mehboob, the president of PILDAT. Mr. Mehboob, could you please give us your final thoughts as we wrap up this historical program today?
Thank you, Cheryl. Internet had been very unkind today, and the part of the world where I'm sitting, but thank you. I think two basic thoughts. One is that some very hard work has gone into bringing about the peace negotiations to the stage where it is now. So I wish to commend the efforts of Ambassador Sadiq Khan and, of course, the government of Pakistan, and seeing it through to this stage, and would like to see it to reach some fruition in the coming few days, inshallah. Secondly, I think it had been a very inspiring journey for the last couple of weeks since we were introduced to Heidi. And I think the message needs to reach to a lot more people, to inspire them to become a part of the effort which Heidi and his team and his organization have been making. So we are very happy that we were able to come across such a inspiring organization, inspiring family, and we look forward to finding opportunities to work together in Pakistan sometime soon, inshallah.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, we are at the end of our broadcast time, and we have to say goodbye. You've been listening to our extraordinary guests, the faces you have seen on the screen, His Excellency Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq, Pakistan Special Representative for Afghanistan, Bilal Mehboob, President of the Pakistan Institute of Legislative Development and Transparency, called PILDAT for short, Shahid Khan, the Honorary Consul General of Pakistan and Roots of Peace Senior Advisor, Gary Kuhn, president of Roots of Peace, and Heidi Kuhn, founder of Roots of Peace and author of the book Breaking Ground, about the dangerous 23-year journey to help war-torn countries remove landmines and restore the land for agriculture and development. So it's about peace through agriculture. For more information about PILDAT and Roots of Peace, we want to show you their websites, PILDAT.org and rootsofpeace.org. You're invited to please connect with them on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We want to thank everyone for sending their questions in to us. Our program will be posted on PILDAT's YouTube channel and the Roots of Peace YouTube channel very soon. We want to thank you to everyone for joining us around the world. Stay safe and be well. Bye-bye.